Now that Laid Back Camp is over, I thought I would make my review on the series because before this anime ever even started back in December, I saw this was coming out as an anime in January, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna check this out. It seems really interesting, just about girls trying to camp outside together, have a good time. It's called Laid Back Camp, so well, obviously the theme of the series is a very laid back theme. I mean, come on guys, try to keep up. The story centers around a couple of girls, Nadeshiko, Rin, Aoi, and Chiaki, and arguably one of Rin's friends called Saito. You could argue that the actual main character is Nadeshiko, but some others may say it's Rin because the first character you're really introduced to is actually Rin, the short girl with like bluish hair. I would say they both kinda deserve the main character slot because it seems to be going back and forth between these two characters a lot. Like, you could definitely see why these two characters are considered the main characters and why like Aoi or Chiaki aren't, because they're simply put, they're not as centered as Nadeshiko or Rin. Now, the focus of the series, as far as I was able to tell at least, is that it's not really your typical anime where you have a really obvious peak in terms of the plot. Instead, it's a very straight line in a way. It doesn't really just go upwards at any given point. It's kinda the same throughout the entire anime's run. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing though, because what this anime wanted to kinda do, as far as I understand anyway, and I think a lot of people can see where I'm coming from, is that it's trying to teach us camping. It's trying to teach us about outdoor camping, with tents and cooking and all of these kind of things. And it's set in the winter time, which just kind of helps with the whole camping aspect, I guess, because it allows the series to really go even deeper into, types of sleeping bags and stuff like that. But I get into that soon because the way it teaches isn't really that subtle either. It's very much open. However, it doesn't get in the way of the telling of the story, because usually, if it's not a subtle way of doing it, it could be done in a way that, you're either gonna have to teach the audience about camping or you're gonna have to tell a really compelling story. But I think Laid Back Camp was able to do both, honestly. I think they managed to sort of teach people about camping but also tell a really good story at the same time, because it's done in such a way that two of the characters, Chiaki and Aoi, they're really teaching Nadeshiko a lot about camping through these catalogs, the pricing of stuff, different types of tents, different types of sleeping bag, what differs between them and stuff like that, and why some have different pricings and whatnot, and do you really need to get the most expensive one, or is it fine to get a less expensive one? These kind of things are kind of done in a way that two of the characters in the story are teaching the main character, because she's not really that into camping at the beginning. I mean, she likes camping, she likes being outdoor, but she's not really that used to camping because she doesn't really own camping supplies to that extent, as we could really tell in the early episodes. But Rin, she's a really seasoned camper, so no one's really gonna teach Rin about camping, because you could argue she's the most veteran out of the characters that we have been introduced to in these 12 episodes. Now, as I said, this story centers around girls and only girls. Now, it's not a Yuri story. In fact, it's not even a romance at all. There's like no guys involved either, because normally in a slice of life you'd have some kind of romance aspect going on, but in the case of Laid Back Camp, that's not really the case. It really isn't. In fact, the only males you really run into are either like store clerks or one of the girl's parents, stuff like that. That's really the only males that you really run into usually. Or to put it in other terms, they're side characters. Characters that you're not really supposed to care about, essentially. So at the beginning of the story, Nadeshiko, she goes to her school. She's recently moved to this area and she's new to her school, I guess, and she wants to join the outdoor activities club, and that is how she meets Chiako and Aoi. Now, she doesn't really meet Rin that way because Rin isn't even part of that club, which is interesting given how she's the most seasoned camper out of all of them. Now, because she actually likes to camp on her own, which we find out really early on. Like, even in the first episode, we see how Rin is actually camping solo, and that's how she meets Nadeshiko, because Nadeshiko is sleeping outside on a bench because she was tired, she was cycling up the mountain, got really tired, took a nap, and when she woke up it was really dark. She didn't really want to cycle back home when it was dark outside, so she met Rin, hung out with Rin for a while, until Nadeshiko's sister arrives with the car and she can go home. The way that Rin is developed is very interesting though, because Rin at the beginning, as I've said a few times now, she likes to solo camp a lot, but through the story we see how she actually starts to kind of progressively become more of a group kind of person, because obviously at the beginning she's all alone, then she meets Nadeshiko and then they're camping as two people, and then in the last 2 episodes we actually see how eventually Nadeshiko, Rin, Aoi, Chiaki, and this friend Saito, and even a 6th person, which is a member of staff at their school, like a drunk, she also joins them. So we have a really big group effort going on in the last 2 episodes. So Rin definitely had some character development going on, or character progression more like, to be honest, which I really like to see, because Rin was from the very beginning my favorite character in the story, because she's really not that emotionally expressive, as you can really tell watching this anime. She is very closed in as a character, but at the same time she's not really shy. She's just not as outgoing as maybe Nadeshiko, because Nadeshiko is like really hyperactive, whereas Rin is the exact opposite of that. Okay, so let's talk about the demographic of this series. What age group was this anime primarily meant for? That is something that I think is very interesting, because I was thinking about this for a while. I couldn't really pinpoint an exact answer that I would be satisfied with saying, because at first glance it seems to be leaning more towards a younger audience, honestly, because of how simple it is. It's a very laid back series. Obviously it's called Laid Back Camp, as we've established now twice, and it's not a very complex series at all. Like, it is so simple to watch. Nothing is complicated in the slightest. They explain everything perfectly fine for like even a young person to be able to understand it. Like if someone who's like 12, 13 years old were to watch Laid Back Camp, they would be understanding what's going on just as easily as someone who's like 20, 25. Now, but I don't think that this is necessarily meant for primarily teenagers specifically. I think it's also trying to get all kinds of age groups just to be interested in more outdoor activities, because let's be honest, nowadays a lot of people are kind of stuck indoors in real life, not in anime. We're all always sitting in front of our TVs or computers, watching stuff, which is kind of ironic coming from an anime, which you kind of have to be watching from inside, right? And then they are asking you to go outside more. I mean, at least that's kind of the vibes I was getting from this anime, although that is very subtle, trust me. Like, they're not really poking that at you. They're just, I mean, obviously they're trying to tell you or teach you more about camping by watching this anime. That's really what they're trying to do. However, you can obviously tell when you're looking from it at a certain angle that they kind of want you to take that into practice as well. They don't just want you to have the knowledge of camping, they kind of want you to actually go outside and practice it. Because the teachings of camping that they're giving, they're not necessarily things that you even need to know if you're not actually gonna do it. Like how you would need a certain type of tent. I mean, if you're just interested about camping, but you don't have any interest in ever trying it yourself, that is simply no information you'd ever need to have. So I don't really think the age group is specified. However, I think they made it simple enough so that every single age group could in fact watch this anime and be equally satisfied. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for this review. So I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments, if you watched Laid Back Camp, or Yuru Camp as it is called in Japanese. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did it exceed your expectation? Was it worse than you thought it would be? Just let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu. Toga is lifu.